I think. Yes. Maybe. Yo, Catch. Are you there? Now I don't hear you at all. Started to hear you for a second.
Now you can hear me?
Now I can hear you. Try it again. Give me a yo. Give me a yo.
Okay. Yo! What a weird beginning on the show. Chad, it just froze at 2 seconds, and I don't know what happened. Hey, guys, we're with you here on House Divided on Orange Bloods Live. Bad start. It can only get better from here. Do us a solid, not because we've earned it, because you somewhat like us. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications. It does help us, every single one of those things. Thanks to everybody in the Specs chat. Blake says in the Specs chat that I froze. Is that what happened? I have no idea what that was.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of looked that way to me. I was waiting to hear the yo, and it didn't happen, but I think we're good now. So we're ready to roll.
Chad, on the countdown, it hit 2 seconds, and then it froze, and I was like,
yeah. I've had a couple of those weird ones too, where you just kind of don't know exactly what you're looking at, and you don't know what to do, and then love that technology. Old men in technology, ladies and gentlemen.
No doubt about that. Well, guys, a lot of talk about today. It's funny, Chad and I were talking about today, and it's like, what do you hit? It's like, I think you hit on a little bit of everything in today's show. We are 3 days out from the NFL draft. By the way, Scotty Scheffler woke up this morning and won another golf tournament because that's what he apparently just does.
Catch, real quick, did you see the stat? Last time somebody won the Masters and immediately won the next event. You see how long it's been?
No.
1985. Bernard Longer is the last guy to win the Masters and then turn right around and win the next event, that win the next week's PGA event.
It usually feels like guys just take those weeks off and
either take them off or like shoot an 87 on day one, and we all go, yeah, but he just won the Masters.
He's still hungover or drunk, and not Scotty Scheffler. Mm-hmm. The man is a man of God, and men of God don't get drunk all week long so that he can't show up for the next golf tournament. The only thing that's going to stop Scotty Scheffler is his wife having a baby at some point, but it hasn't happened yet, and he won another golf tournament. And the Texas football team had its spring game on Saturday. And Chad, I just want to start here. Like, I've written a column, my 10 thoughts on the weekend over at Orange Bloods. I did the Monday Overreaction show with Anwar and Alex. Feels like everybody's head is in their own unique places with regards to the spring game. So almost 48 hours later, you are thinking what?
My overall thought coming out of it, if I'm talking to a Texas fan that didn't see anything, I would tell them that their head coach has guts, has big brass ones, does not care what anybody thinks, and he trusts his football team. That's what I would tell them. Because otherwise, the way the spring game was presented makes absolutely no sense. But Steve Sarkisian trusts this team. He trusts how they'll deal with what he just presented everybody. And that's what I come away with. He really digs the team. And he just, I don't know that I've ever seen that spring game where your starting quarterback is healthy. I think he needs reps, but the coach doesn't. The coach is perfectly confident, and he focuses on a backup. That backup focuses the whole thing on that backup and a third stringer that looked pretty good too. And coming out of it, he just took one question about it, deflected it, and moved on. That's what that's my overall thought coming out of it. Sark's got big brass ones, and he is at least ready for the SEC in terms of attitude.
There were people who watched the Orange Bloods post-game show. And by the way, if you missed it, it's like a couple of hours of us just breaking down the spring game. It was a good show. Go check it out. Not now. You're with us now. But if you want to watch that later on, it's a good show. A lot of people thought you were screaming fire in a crowded theater, that the Aggie was trying to cause trouble, that you were trying to make a thing out of the Arch Manning deal. Like nothing has changed for me off of the spring game. Matt, if nothing else, I've dug in a little bit more, Chad, because I went back and watched the spring game a couple of times. By the way, thanks to our guy Nash Talks Texas, because he did a condensed Twitter version of the game. Oh, it was great.
That's cool.
I love it when someone just makes a 2-hour enterprise and whittles it down to 30-ish minutes, because then you can go back and watch the game real fast a couple of times. And I did that. I think Arch was really, really good. And one of the things that happened on Saturday is the Arch Manning skeptics shut the hell up. There are people that think he's a 3-star player with a 5-star name and that he's not really all this that he's built up to be.
And that person did chat in on the post game. So at least one person is still in that mindset even after the game, but I think it's the only one.
I thought that person was saying that tongue in cheek.
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so.
The thing is, like, those people are quiet today. I think the thing that Texas fans, the rest of the nation, I feel like knows this, other than some of Texas's SEC rivals who are going to act like rivals. And, I'll still have people who will be like, Vince Young wasn't that good. It's like, okay, I get it. I get who you're a fan of. You cannot concede anything. I got it. But everybody else is like, when do we get to see the Arch Manning kid play more? That guy is really good. What happened on Saturday, and I don't know that this has sunk in for a lot of people. All throughout camp, Arch has mainly worked with the twos almost exclusively. And Quinn Ewers is the starting quarterback, and he gets to go with the ones. How you filter, how you feel about players, and how they've done throughout camp sometimes is seen through the prism of Arch has been working with the 2 offensive line all camp long. So when he goes against the ones, it's not apples and apples. He's not getting to play with the best players. On Saturday, Sark took Quinn Ewers out. He put Arch Manning in, and what we watched was Arch work a lot of the time with the ones against the ones, and he looked like a starting level player. He looks like a very good college quarterback. And I say that on a day when Connor Weigman went 4 of 15 in the A&M spring game, and Jackson Arnold was 11 of 20, and the Michigan kid didn't clear 100 yards. Like, I watched and paid attention to a lot of spring games. The quarterback thing was the thing where almost everybody had questions, but not good ones. How good is our quarterback? Do we have a good quarterback? What do we do at quarterback? Texas is really good at quarterback. And what Texas has is the best backup player in the country. There's no team in the country that has Arch Manning sitting on the bench, a former number 1 overall prospect in his recruiting class. Those guys play. And Arch is the backup right now. But I feel confident in saying 95% of the schools in the country, Arch Manning's the starting quarterback. That's just the way that it is. I remember asking you a buy or sell question a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, buy or sell? You'd rather have Arch Manning over Connor Weigman. And you went buy for multiple reasons. But that was before the spring game. That was before you were like, oh, 355 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he's throwing the ball all over the place. And I just thought he was really, really good. I don't know that Quinn Ewers is better than Arch Manning. That does not mean I think that that Arch should be starting. That does not mean that I think that Quinn sucks. That does not mean that I think there's a quarterback controversy. What it means is I think Quinn Ewers is very good. I don't think Quinn Ewers is great yet. I watched Arch Manning on Saturday, and the player that I watched on Saturday, I think we could have a legitimate conversation where we say, is he very good? I think you could make a case that he is. And if we're talking about two guys that are both very good, but maybe neither of them is great yet, I think they're kind of running in the same territory. And I think Texas has two quarterbacks. I've heard people say things, Chad, like, when Texas switches for Quinn to Arch, it'll be the most seamless quarterback transition that you've ever seen. On Saturday, I think we got a look of like what that means. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to start trouble. I'm not trying to create a controversy. There's not one. But Arch Manning is good. He might be very good. And what we saw on Saturday is that's what it looks like when he gets to throw to Jonte Cook and Isaiah Bond and like the main primary guys. It looks
with that O-line.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. With everybody.
With Kelvin Banks and DJ Campbell and all of their best players. It's like, oh, he got a clean pocket. Oh, he had time to throw. Oh, he has those receivers. Oh, it looked really good. Now, the thing is, if Arch were the starting quarterback, kid's got to grow up. He's going to have one of those days on everybody. Uncle Peyton had it. Uncle Eli had it. Quinn had it. So the thing is, like, if Arch had to start all 12 games this season, you'd have to go through some aches and pains because that's what the football gods demand. They always put a guy through the ringer. But I think he's a guy that would put up big numbers in this offense if he were the starting quarterback this year. I expect the same of Quinn Ewers. And oh, by the way, Trey Owens looked badass as a true freshman running with the third team. And the goddamn walk-on fourth string guy, Cole Lord, might have thrown the best pass of the day.
Ooh, that was a needle. Woo, man.
I'm telling you.
That was a seed.
I watched a lot. That's my thing on a Monday. I guess my big takeaway, Chad, is it was the last big day of spring football games across the country. They were happening all over the place. Mm-hmm. OU, A&M, Michigan, Texas, on and on it went. It felt like at most schools, they didn't know if they had a good quarterback. And it felt like every guy that Texas ran onto the field at quarterback on Saturday was at least pretty good. Even the backup walk-on led the team down the field, had a scoring drive, and as you mentioned, threw a ball into the end zone through a tight window, through like 5 guys in traffic that was pretty good. I feel pretty confident saying that Texas has the best quarterback room in the country. I can't imagine a better one. They looked like a team oozing with quarterback talent. And, part of my 10 Thoughts in a Weekend column at Orange Bloods focused on Trey Owens, and it was like, hey, man, you got to be patient because you can see where that guy's going to be a good college quarterback. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but he's got to wait for Quinn in 2024 and Arch in 2025 and probably Arch again in 2026 and getting guys in 2024 to be comfortable with your time will come in almost another presidential full cycle is a tough thing to do. But, Steve Sarkisian, at least at the quarterback position, I don't think he could ask for more. His cup runneth over.
We've hit 400. We're headed towards 500 in the Specs chat already. We've got good chats coming in. Remember, if you want to throw us a super chat, it'll go right to the top of the list. Let's let Specs give you a little bit of love, and then we'll start hitting those chats.
You're needing Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
All right, let's get started with this one. A response to me. Brad says, Chad, Sark protected Quinn. If Arch outplayed him, meaning Quinn plays more minutes, then the debate has legs. As it was, Arch competed against a ghost, only able to speculate. Brad, an interesting take. By your argument, why have him play at all then? Why not just put him in street clothes? Why would you have him have two drives that end in pick six off a tip ball and a miscommunication or a misdelivery to a receiver? If you're right, and it's just about protecting Quinn, and obviously Sark trusts Quinn to this level, have him just stand next to him. Have him stand out there with a headset on. Have him talk to LHN. Have him be the field, sideline, analyst guy if it's to that level. That's the only part of it I'm trying to work through. Let me be very clear. I'm so glad Sark did it this way. He leaned in so hard on the circus in a way I just didn't think he would. Thank you, Sark. Please understand I'm thanking you for it. You went big top, like 3 ring in a way I was not expecting. And I'm thrilled about it. So, Brad, that's all I'm saying. I just,
a couple of years ago, we've seen Sark run a spring game where he's the puppet master. And I'll remember in 2021 when Casey Thompson and Hudson Card were competing against each other, Hudson was having a good spring game. Remember, he threw that slant into the end zone, and it was like, oh, that was an NFL throw.
That was a bullet, yeah.
And Casey wasn't having those moments, so he left Casey in, and Casey threw the ball 43 times, and it was a real effort on Sark's part because he wanted to keep Casey Thompson engaged. He didn't want Casey to transfer, and then they only have one quarterback in the fall. So Hudson suddenly stopped going in, stopped playing with the good players. Casey stayed in, threw it 43 times. And it felt like Sark was manipulating the quarterback play that day. And look, I don't mean that as like a negative thing. It made sense at the time why he did it that way. We can intellectually explain. He wanted the appearance that it was close to remain. He wanted to keep Casey Thompson fully engaged. He didn't want to come out of the spring game with everybody saying, oh, Hudson Card's obviously the starter. Casey has no chance. So he operated the spring game in a way to do everything he could to avoid those things from happening. On Saturday, Sark could have sensed, Arch was 11 of 13 at halftime. One of the incompletions was a throwaway, and the other ones hit his receiver literally at the goal line with seconds to go in the half. He could have thought to himself, seen enough of Arch. Let's not make this thing too much of a spectacle.
He didn't care.
He didn't care.
No, he didn't. And here's our first super chat of the day. Oscar, I agree with this. Super chat $4.99. I just think Sark doesn't care what we thought about Arch. He wanted to see what he wanted to see. We didn't matter to the equation. Oscar, I think you're dead on. He stood back there on the field. He never called a play. He may have been the puppet master long form, but he wasn't actually calling those plays. He sat back, catch. All he needed was nachos, man.
Yeah.
It looked like he was having a ball watching that game. And that's why I said there's a gutsiness to it. There's an attitude to it. He's looking right down the barrel of that fan base, of you Longhorn fans, and putting that quarterback out there to do that. And he knows what y'all are going to say walking out of the stadium. It's not just me. Those of you reacting to me saying something and falling back on, well, look, the Aggie, that's short-sighted and you know it, and how dare you. Your fellow Longhorn fans walked out of DKR talking about number 3 and number 16. Don't lie to yourself. But Sark doesn't care. That's the beauty of this. Your coach has the confidence in this team that they can all handle whatever this is about to be.
It does remind me of when Arch spoke at the Sugar Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that, like Quinn Ewers just going to have to deal with some shit. Like he just is. He already has been.
You mean when the sideline reporter asked the second question about Arch and he has to go, who? And then answer the question?
Leading up to a national semifinal, when there's an actual picture of the starting quarterback looking over, it's so on the nose, all you can do is laugh about it. He's literally looking over his shoulder at a large scrum of people talking to his backup.
Mm-hmm.
And the visual optics of that day, we talked about it then. It's like,
and they didn't care then, Catch. They didn't care
then.
Sark didn't apologize for that. SID didn't apologize for that. And Saturday after the spring game, one of the first shots they got was Sark and Quinn high-fiving, smiling at each other. Quinn looked like he was all right. There were moments where he kind of had that, but Quinn's resting face is kind of, we've talked about it. His resting face is kind of mopey. It's kind of uninterested, but that's sort of his resting face. But he was laughing and smiling and, shaking hands and dabbing it up with Sark after the game. Looked like everything was cool. So, I mean, again, they've got their own path here. And if you're a Texas fan that likes to worry a little too much, I would just tell you, try to breathe through it because they have supreme confidence right now.
The day after the spring game, yesterday, was a Sunday. It was yesterday. You guys remember it. I went to all of the national sports websites. There was one college football story that was on the front page of every. I can pull the screenshots up and show them.
Mm-hmm.
It was the backup quarterback at Texas dazzles, or whatever word that the headline was used. I think ESPN.com's was dazzles. There were no other college football stories.
The only thing
front pages anywhere. The only one was Arch Manning and what he did.
The only thing I saw above Arch at one point on college football stuff, and it was this morning, 2 days after, was a couple transfer stories. Kid transferring to Colorado, and there was another transfer. But Catch, did you see a headline that involved a starter in a spring game? A starting quarterback?
No, I didn't see any headlines involving any spring games. It was just the Texas spring game.
It didn't happen in College Station, but if Connor Wigman had thrown 5 touchdowns and thrown for 350, do you think there'd have been a headline?
No.
I don't either. But Arch Manning shines in Texas spring game and throws for 355 was a headline coming out of that. And back to today's basic thesis, Sark does not care. He is perfectly prepared and ready for it. And it's amazing. It's amazing to watch.
Look, I think if you're a Texas football fan, just be excited. This is an exciting thing. And Texas has, it's like when an NFL team drafts a rookie, but there's already an established quarterback in place, and it's like, how long until we get to see that guy? It's like in Major League Baseball when you have the number one prospect in the sport, but he's at AAA, and there's just, you can't escape the conversation of, he might be our best player, he might be our best talent. When do we get to see him play? That's going to exist for Arch and Texas for the next year. Everybody needs to gear up for how crazy next year is going to be when there's no hiding Arch.
True.
Because and the other thing is, Saturday could have gone different. What Sark hadn't seen a lot of in the spring during scrimmages was Arch working with the ones, playing against the ones. This be about the most controversial thing I'm going to say on the show today, okay?
Okay.
In the last 2 scrimmages, Quinn Ewers worked with the ones, a lot of times played against the twos, And the offense struggled against the defense, except when they were in the red zone. When they did some red zone work, the offense succeeded. But when they were scrimmaging, first-team offense didn't have a lot of success. On Saturday, Quinn Ewers played. He played in the first 2 series. They took him out, but he played almost exclusively against the first-team defense. And the offense didn't look good. When Arch came onto the field, when he finally came onto the field, they had taken a couple of starters out. Alfred Collins didn't play much. Anthony Hill played a lot. Malik Muhammad, Terrence Brooks, the entire secondary, linebackers, a lot of those guys stayed in.
Yeah.
That was Arch with the ones going against the ones, and that was the most success that the first-team offense has had in scrimmaging situations in a month. So, there's no quarterback controversy, but I'm going to say it out loud that Arch working with the ones was the most successful that the ones have been in a scrimmage situation for a month. So, and look, Quinn didn't tear it up while he was in there. I'm not starting a controversy. We all know who the starting quarterback is, but you can't just close your eyes and say it didn't happen this way, because it did. And I think Chad's right. When you look at Arch in the first team offense in those first 2 drives, did they look like a unit that didn't need more time together? No.
Right.
They look like a group. Now, the thing is, you could argue that you don't want to risk injury and you were protecting our Quinn, and I get that. And there's some, I think, weight to that. It makes sense. But there's no way to get around the fact that Arch with the ones look pretty sensational.
Yeah.
Your starting quarterback with the same group of players didn't and hasn't. And I just think it's one of those things you make a mental note going into the season. Doesn't change what I think about Quinn going into the year. Doesn't change what I think about this team going into the season and how much success I think they're going to have. I think Quinn Ewers is going to have a big season. I really do. But they could also have a big season if Arch Manning were the quarterback. I think he's going to be – the funny thing about Saturday, Chad, was watching Alex and Cody do their NFL draft stuff. Mm-hmm. And they didn't want to say it, and they eventually did. Cody had been spending the last week looking at nothing but quarterbacks going into this draft. And the comment that they both kind of co-signed on was you could arguably justify Arch as the number 3 quarterback in this draft, because beyond the top 2 guys, once you get from the 3rd quarterback on, it's all about projection. It's all about just what do you think this guy might be? And they watched draft stuff of all of the quarterbacks and came away, the conclusion on Saturday, although they didn't want to say it too loudly, was that you could justify Arch being in the draft and saying, what do we think he's going to become? This is why we're drafting him in this spot. I think Arch Manning's going to be a first-round draft pick in time. He just is. And at what level and just how high it goes remains to be seen. But it's not a crazy take to put Ewers and Manning in kind of the same plane. They're back-to-back number 1 overall players in their respective classes. If they're not both really, really, really good, somebody messed up. On Saturday, we just saw what it looks like when they turned that beast loose. And he was really, really good. It's impossible to watch Arch on Saturday and not be impressed by what he was doing, especially since it wasn't like he was doing it against the third string guys. He was doing it with first string guys. If anything, it has people on tilt about the status of the Texas defensive backfield, because it was like, hey, man, Malik Muhammad looked good, but Terrence Brooks, Gavin Holmes.
Right.
Saturday, Arch made the Texas secondary look like they needed Jabbar Muhammad. And that's not something that we've been hearing throughout camp.
House divided on a Monday, a crazy Monday after that spring game. Let us know what you think in the chat. Specs chat climbing up towards 600 very quickly. Thank you for that. And thank you for those super chats as they come in. No matter what you thought of the spring game, I got some truth for you. 131 days till Texas plays Colorado State, which means you have 131 days to get the home theater setup that you want, to get that bigger screen you want, to get those multiple screens you want. Hey, you got to be able to follow the Texas game and other SEC games when they're in the big bad new conference, right? And you got to cover all the other stuff on the NFL. You want to be able to watch Red Zone. You want to be able to watch the Cowboys. If you're a Cowboys fan, maybe you're a Cowboys and Texans fan. You want to have a good split screen. They can do it all for you. AV Consultations, 255-8678. They've been doing this since 1988. That's how long they've been in the business, locally owned and operated. They'll make sure you're satisfied. And remember, let them handle every detail. Let them get you the TV because they can get a better deal than you can. Let them handle all of it. The speakers, the furniture, the cords, how to hide everything. So it looks perfect and professional. They'll do it for you. avconsultations.com or 255-8678. Yes, 131 days till the Colorado State game, and 70 days from now, Texas is an SEC team officially. And we have a lot of good chats coming in. Catch this next chat has to be true. It has to be true based on what we saw. Harish says Quinn and Sark were probably laughing at the media fallout. That has to be true. And they both have to be willing to deal with, they both signed up for it. They know what it is. And they were laughing at the end of the game. They looked like they were having a great time.
And the thing is, late last week, and look, we reported this over at Orange Blood. So this isn't like Monday morning quarterbacking reactions. Mm-hmm. There were people close to the program with vested interests in these things that were like a little worried that what happened on Saturday would happen. That, look, imagine you're a family member of Quinn, right? So you're team Quinn all the way because you're related. And it's like, okay, well, he's clearly the starter. Arch is the backup. We've made it through 14 practices, and there's no controversy. No. There's nobody like saying things that are being said. And there was concern. What if Quinn's not allowed to play? Arch is, and Arch has a big day. And then, because we saw this with Malik Murphy a year ago, where he didn't have much of a spring practice to write home about, but he had the big spring game where he was 9 of 13. Like, in retrospect, like you wouldn't compare. I don't think you can compare what Malik did to Arch. Arch, the volume was so much more. The first team versus first team, so much more. But there were people who were concerned that what happened is what happened. And why were they concerned? Because I think that, say what you want to about Quinn, but man, that kid's got some broad shoulders. Because it's one thing to be the quarterback at Texas, the starting quarterback. That comes with a lot of pressure and a lot of expectations and a lot of just stuff. It's another thing to be all of those things, but then to have Chris Sims or Arch Manning behind you. It changes. We can say that Quinn was probably laughing, but is he still laughing today? Was he still laughing yesterday when, he's still probably getting the Arch questions?
I mean, it has to be. That's what I'm saying. That has to be true. This also has to be true. Quinn, Sark, and Arch are laughing at the media fallout. Uncommon cravings? Yes. They all have to be laughing at that. And so does every teammate. And so do all you Texas fans. You all have to be laughing at it because you know who the starter is. No matter what happens, barring injury, you know that Quinn is your guy. He can play bad. They can lose.
But what you know that because of what happened on Saturday, if they are in the second quarter of the second game of the season in Ann Arbor, and there's 7 minutes to go in the second quarter, and it's a 3-3 game, you know what's going to happen.
I know what should happen based on what we're seeing. Quinn's the quarterback.
But you also know what else will happen.
Oh, you mean an entire fan base with that spring game in their head will be thinking that their backup can outperform their starter? Yeah, that'll happen too.
But the rest of the nation will also do that thing. Look, here's the thing that Longhorn fans don't really want to hear, but is also true. Quinn Ewers doesn't register nationally. Not yet. Quinn Ewers is a nice player, but he's not Bo Nix. He's not any of those big dog quarterbacks from a year ago. He's not Michael Penix Jr. Not yet. So if he struggles, it will be national. First take will be like, Texas is ranked 5th in the country, but should they be playing Arch Manning instead of Quinn Ewers? What the hell does Stephen A. Smith know about the quarterback situation at Texas? Nothing, but it won't stop it from being a topic. So, I'm just saying that it's a unique situation and that Ewers has to carry on with all of that weight is unique. I give him so much credit. Do you know that how many other ways, bad ways there are to process and handle what he is processing and handling? He's been a total team player. He's acted like a captain. I have seen other Texas quarterbacks who this fan base historically loves. They didn't all handle this the way that Quinn Ewers is handling it. Some resented it. Some pushed back against it. Some let it create divisions inside the team, and how you hung out with players was partly determined by what team were you on from a quarterback standpoint. In a lot of ways, I think Major Applewhite knows how this feels, and I think Chance Mock knows how this feels. Think about it's a conversation we could have with Chance every single week. Chance was ranked 8th in the country in passing efficiency when he lost his job. He had a 16-1 touchdown to interception ratio in 2004, and the only thing people could talk about was Vince Young. And Chance was ascending. In Chance's mind, it was like, if I get to play that whole season, do I throw 30-something touchdowns? Do I finish the season with 35 touchdowns and 5 picks? And what is that? Chance will, for the rest of his life, wonder, what if he just didn't have that guy behind him? And, that guy right now is Arch Manning, and I give Quinn a lot of credit. It's an incredibly mature way of handling it, and we keep talking about it. Arch is like the big top man. There's no controlling what he represents, and Saturday only enhances that. And so it means that every time I think Quinn gets on the field next season, the pressure to play really well or else that thing might happen, I think is unique. Like Carson Beck's not dealing with that at Georgia. I don't think where there are really successful starting quarterbacks throughout the country. Michael Penix didn't have to worry hey, man, if I struggle for a couple of quarters and it's the third quarter and I'm still trying to work this thing out, he didn't have to worry about chance in the stadium. Because if you think that this fan base is so big and like sophisticated that they can't get into the third quarter of a game and start going, we want Arch in the stands, you just haven't been around long enough to know.
Yep. That is true, too. A lot of good chats coming in on the Specs chat. We appreciate you there on a Monday. Obviously, we got buy or sell coming before the end of the show. Let me just give you a quick reminder about one of our great partners, Sinus and Snoring Specialists. I had a busy weekend with spring game and family stuff coming. Family was in town, but I got great sleep like I do all the time now, thanks to Sinus and Snoring Specialists. I had my stuff got started in 2017. I've never regretted it, and you won't either. It's the very latest in ear, nose, and throat stuff. So you got bad allergies, you got sinus headaches, you got snoring issues, you have sleep apnea. Your wife or husband is telling you you're not breathing while you're sleeping. I can hear it, and it sounds crazy and scary. That's what I ended up telling my wife. That's why she's got a CPAP right now, and she loves it. That's what my wife was telling me before I went to Sinus and Snoring Specialists, and that's why we got it taken care of. I had moderate obstructed sleep apnea, but now I sleep like a baby. There's your QR code to check them out. Sinus and Snoring Specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy for football season or the spring or whatever it is you need. A lot of good chats coming in. Real quick catch. Do you buy this chat? Arch not going in unless we are down big and late, says Nick. You agree with that? Other than an injury.
What if they're up big?
Could be, right?
So
Nick, good point.
I think what Nick may be trying to say is that Arch isn't going in unless games are decided. That's almost certainly true, I would imagine. I can't imagine Sark's just to tinker and see, is going to be putting in Arch into the second quarter just to get him reps. I mean, I think the spirit of what he's saying is right, but Arch will get playing time because this team is expected to be up in a lot of the games that it plays. So I would expect that Arch will get most of his playing time while Texas is up big and ahead late.
Yeah. I agree. By the way, did you think this kind of number was going on? Is Rex saying there were 45,000 people at DKR? It didn't quite look like that much to me. If y'all were in the stadium, let us know. 45?
It was a good crowd. It wasn't 45.
Okay. I have not seen any reported number. Somebody asked in the chat before we got started. Texas didn't even keep the stats of the game. So therefore, I'm sure they didn't really have anybody that had to worry about.
I've never once paid attention to an SID reported spring game number. It's always inflated.
Yes.
But it was a good crowd. I think it was the best spring game crowd that a lot of people can remember for at least a decade. But let's not go crazy with the number.
Yeah, and especially a good crowd, and you give them an attaboy for that pending weather issue we had going in. Thank God the weather it really held off, right? I don't think it actually
The Aggie crowd sucked. What was up with that?
The Aggie crowd, when they really did have rain. They had light rain in the first half, and then if you catch, they started at noon instead of 1. So literally, I heard about it maybe an hour before. But I mean, they decided that morning, unless I missed an evening announcement, but they had decided to move it from 1 to 12. So everybody had that schedule and it got redone a little bit. It rained lightly in the first half and it dumped a little bit in the second half. So I think that could probably explain a little bit, but you're right. It wasn't a phenomenal crowd.
Although Ruben Owens had a phenomenal run.
Ruben had a nice run. That was a nice 75.
More of that, young man.
Yeah, exactly. Need a lot more of that. 25 to 30K in attendance, says Nick. It looked like a good number. I just didn't quite think it was 45. All right, so catch outside.
You know what the issue might have been is that the numbers always get reported inflated, right? So if 20 show up, they'll say it's 30. Mm-hmm. And I think on Saturday, you probably saw a crowd that was at the numbers of what is usually reported. Because it was a good crowd. They had a good spring game crowd. But that upper deck is monstrous. You know what I mean? Like how they get to 100,000. They're big pieces of property that had no fans in it that, it makes it hard to quite go 45.
So, Catch, obviously, if you want to keep talking about, the quarterbacks and Arch, we can do that. I wanted to throw out one general comment I heard after the game. I haven't watched all of LHN's post game, but they had Peter Burns, who we've had on the show before of SEC Network, and Brian Robinson doing the post game, pregame, and everything. Alex Loeb called the game itself. Lo Galindo's doing UFL, just for you broadcasting nerds. So, he comes back. Peter Burns says, I've watched a lot of spring games. That's one of the most entertaining spring games that I've ever seen. And I started thinking about it. One thing that I'd love about that game, if I'm a Texas fan, everything just felt like it ran smoothly, didn't it? I know you had the tip pick six early and everything, but as far as, not a lot of administrative penalties, didn't feel like guys were jumping off sides. I know, you got, it's a spring game and the officials or whatever, but you have officials there. It just didn't feel sloppy to me. You already mentioned all the quarterbacks looking good. And we can go down the list of receivers that made nice plays. Obviously, there's some things to talk about on defense. But I just thought overall the entertainment level was high, and it just felt smooth to me overall.
Well, yes, I think all of those things are correct. I think this is what it looks like. I think when you have a truly deep team, because normally – when you get to the third quarter of like mid third quarter on in a spring game, we won't have had football for 4 months. And I'm like, God, into this thing already. Like, this isn't fun. Can this game be over already? That was a fun, first of all, they kept it within like that 2-hour window. So they kept it tight. And it was really entertaining all the way through. We started our post-game show right up at 3:00, and the game was still going. It had just a little bit of time left on it, but like it was a last-minute drive, and Arch is throwing for the end zone, and like it was. I agree with Peter, and he's been to more spring games than I have. All I've really done is gone to Texas spring games and watched 30 years straight of Texas spring games. I can't remember the last time where I was fully invested in the fourth quarter of a spring game. I did on Saturday. And I think the fact that it's a really deep team in terms of talent means that when it's third or fourth string guys going against each other, it's still, and I think the quarterback played a big part. That Trey Owens was really good. And even Cole Lord, when he came in, was really good. It really meant that there wasn't an obvious severe drop-off, right? When it wasn't like when Trey Owens came into the game, it was like, oh, he can't complete a pass, so I guess they're just going to run the ball now.
Right.
It was a game where it felt like every quarterback they put in could do a really good job, and I think, you know what? Moving forward, if they're 4 deep at capable quarterbacks every spring, they'll probably have good spring games.
Yeah, we had a couple of chats here from a guy named Nick here. Nick says Owens looked like he could compete to start at any other major program in the country. I'm including SEC. He said Owens showed he can make a variety of throws, stay in the pocket under pressure, move around if needed. Catch, my favorite throw of the whole game, I think, was Owen. The Owens throw to Wingo down the left side.
Great throw.
That freshman play, it all involved freshmen. He hits Wingo, who's going between Kobe Black, who got beat on the outside, and Phil Samiz, the safety, coming over, and he puts it right in between the two of them, and Wingo waltzes into the end zone. Clearly, Wingo is the star you talk about in this game. I think if you're not talking about Arch's performance, but that, to me, Catch, might have been the prettiest throw I saw. And, yeah, Owen stepped up and said, yep, I'm ready. Let's go. He had 3 touchdown throws of his own.
I think Nick probably goes a little far. Like, I don't know that Owens is ready to be a starter just about anywhere, including in the SEC yet. But he's, I think you certainly would have seen enough on Saturday to know that he can, in time, be that kind of player. I'm sure the Texas coaches will hear comments like this and be like, don't say that out loud. We're trying to. I don't know how you keep that guy for the next 3 or 4 years, because in quarterback years are like dog years. That's why we see guys transferring after 1 semester or 2 semesters. It'll take a lot of work by Sark, I think, and this coaching staff to convince Owens that, like, hey, you're 4 seasons away from being the starter? So that's a lot. And thing is, he did look good enough that it looked like he could play for somebody. I don't know if he's ready to be a starter yet. I really don't. But, next year he might be a guy that could start at a lot of places all over the country, and he'll be second string at Texas.
Catch, we got a chat here I think all Texas fans need to see and maybe write it down and repeat it to themselves a lot coming up. MASH88 says, I hope the fan base remains level-headed and not become our own worst enemy pushing a quarterback controversy. Really don't want another Sims Applewhite situation with the team in a good place. MASH88, I like the sentiment. Make sure everyone that sits around you in games is repeating that sentiment, because when it comes to real time, Catch, those murmurs can start fast.
Oh, man. DKR is like a halfway house for people that want to murmur. And, like, I'm convinced that half the people that go to DKR want to be pissed in the third quarter so that they can murmur and, like, rabble and do their thing. It's weird how I always tell this story. In 2001, when Texas beat the brakes off of Colorado in Austin, in the fourth quarter of that game, I think Sims had 5 touchdown passes or 4 touchdown passes, and they were up like 42-7 or something like that. And he had one bad throw, and I'll never forget. Sean Adams and I were sitting in the stands in Section 8, and this guy stood on the bleachers. Sims, you suck! Like, put in Major the wrong, and it was like,
yeah,
guys, it's 40, like, it's a blowout.
Yeah.
And, the thing is, like, why can't you be Sims and Applewhite was polarizing. And part of that was because the Texas coaching staff made what they thought was a conscientious decision to move away from Applewhite because they believed that Applewhite came with limitations. They believe it was never about giving Sims the job in real time because they thought he was better than Applewhite at the very beginning of the whole Sims Applewhite deal. The thought process was we might win a national championship with Chris Sims. If we stay with Major Applewhite, maybe like 9-3 or 10-2 is our ceiling. So they took that leap because they thought fundamentally one guy who, to be fair, was coming off of an ACL injury at one point when he eventually just flat out lost the job. They thought Applewhite came with limitations. It's not the same thing. Major Applewhite was never going to be a pro quarterback. Was never going to be a starting NFL quarterback. And that's who Chris Sims was. Yeah. We're talking about a situation now where you've got Quinn and Arch. Both of these guys should end up being first-round draft picks. So, what I think is when Texas fans go to the stadium, they don't have to worry about whether one guy brings limitations. I think this coaching staff probably believes that they can compete for a national championship with either player. Quinn Ewers is experienced. He has that. You can't take that away from him. Part of growing up in each of the last 2 seasons is so that he could get to this third season and be the experienced guy. It is the one thing that Arch has. You can't put a price on it. Quinn has played his first game as a starter. He has played his first road game as a starter. He's played in his first Texas OU game. He's gone to Tuscaloosa. Like, he's done all of these things. And while I think Arch Manning may in time end up better and maybe even just on the surface be kind of equal right now, he doesn't have those lived experiences, and it's a huge edge for Quinn Ewers. And, I think the one thing where Mash is right, like, don't be the fan base that ruins things because they can't be patient.
Yeah, and it's going to be, yeah, right. It's a tough thing. That mob mentality takes over in the stadium. It can be very difficult, but you got to you got to realize, what this thing is. By the way, super chat coming in from Jose. Thank you, Jose. $1.99. The UT spring game was 2 starters playing and Quinn. 2 starters playing and Quinn. I'm not understanding the point there, Catch. Are you getting that?
No.
2 starters playing and Quinn. Jose, thank you for the $1.99. I'm not exactly sure what you're saying.
Jose,
there.
for free.
Yeah, clarify.
Oh, for $1.99, send the
send the clarification.
Send the full, you're not restricted to 100 characters.
Yeah, please. Yes, let us know. Let me see if just double checking that he didn't send something right after that. I'm not exactly getting that reference. Here is another super chat while we're waiting. Thank you, Ashley, $4.99. I did not see many different coverages. Look like cover one man 80 to 90% of the time, set up for offense to succeed. Ashley, how dare you suggest that a spring game could be set up for an offense to succeed? Chance Mock would tell you, Chance Mock would tell you you're seeing it correctly, because that can happen sometimes. Catch, would you agree with that breakdown?
I didn't pay attention to see what the coverages look like over the course of the entire scrimmage, so I won't agree exactly with Ashley, because then I would just be pretending that I charted what coverage they were in. But what I would say, that in the spirit of what Ashley is saying, they were very vanilla on defense.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
They weren't running. Johnny Nansen is kind of famous at being at Arizona for dialing up all kinds of crazy shit with his players. It's one of the reasons why when they hired Johnny Nansen, it was like, what is he going to do with Anthony Hill? Whatever it is that he's eventually going to do, he didn't do it on Saturday. Yeah. They weren't trying to confuse. They weren't running stunts. It was a very vanilla setup. And Ashley's right. It was set up for the offense to succeed to a certain extent. But I would just say this. The setup wasn't much different than it had been in the previous 2 scrimmages. And the defense had done really well.
Right.
The one thing I will say is that showing up on Saturday, that could have gone a different way. The offense could have been out of rhythm. Arch could have had a bad day. The defense, it played out the way that it played out. But it didn't play out exactly that way in other scrimmages. So I don't think Sark could have come in and been like evil Sark, where he's like, I mean, the guys had to go out and do it to a certain extent.
Yeah. And he was real happy with that after the game, Catch, when he pointed out guys made plays. Yeah. The one thing coaches can never control is that. They want them to make plays. They set them up to do it. He was thrilled with how they made plays. Just think of the game in your mind, the throws, the catches, the early play, the tip from the pressure from Burke, the tip from, was it Burke that tipped it as well? Burke tipped it, right? The pressure and the tip. Yeah. Then the play from Alfred Collins. All the little things that happened, there was some really good.
That could have happened to Arch instead of Quinn.
Right. Yeah.
Fate is a quirky little thing in that what is meant to happen is actually what happens. And you can't say that something was meant to happen if it doesn't happen. And, Fate on Saturday, it could have, in those 2 drives, it could have been Quinn that connects for the 75-yard touchdown, and then he leaves. And then Arch is actually playing pretty well, but has some bad luck. Tip passes, bounced up in the air, and even at the end, he gets an interception on his ledger. But that was like a Hail Mary. You know what I mean? He could have thrown Hail Marys at the end of both halves, and it's like, well, he threw 2 interceptions and 2 touchdowns. There's just the way that it worked out is the way that it worked out, but it wasn't scripted to be like that. You can't script Trey Owens as a true freshman playing as well as he did. You can't. Cole Lord came in and got picked off by Malik Murphy, and it was like, okay, now we're seeing what it looks like when you play the walk-on quarterback, except then he came in the next drive and looked sensational, leading the team down the field. And we've already talked about the touchdown pass that he threw. Man, I'm just telling you, the same thing I tell anybody who's on Orange Bloods. The thing that you want to feel best about is that's a really talented team.
Oh,
it's got talent all over the place. And what made that game fun is that you could still go like third string versus third string. And there were guys on the field that you would want to watch play. And that hasn't always been the case. We can remember very recent years where they didn't have enough offensive linemen to have it too deep. You know, there have been years where different positions have different stress levels. A couple of years ago, running back was one of those where it was like throughout the spring game, it was mostly a walk-on playing. I can't even remember what that guy's name was, but remember like the 5'5" running back walk-on that in moments like that was like getting a lot of action, and you would say things like, well, yeah, that guy's not going to matter when we get to the season. So how do you gauge what's even important when a lot of the players on the field aren't going to be guys that are – and I think for people who are worried about the defense, I'll say this, Chad. I thought the first-string defense was better while it was in the game than I think a lot of people probably realize. It was the first-team defense that really shut down Quinn, created the pick six, got him off the field. While there were a couple of plays where Arch, barbecue chicken, Terrence Brooks, and a couple of guys in the secondary, it wasn't like I thought the whole first. Alex and I talked about this today. You can feel good about Malik Muhammad. You can feel good about Derek Williams. Makuba played really well. Anthony Hill played a lot and looked really good. You know, there were a lot of pieces of that, what's going to be the first-team defense or players. I thought there were a couple of guys that had really bad days. And then, by and large, I thought really good players made really good plays, but I didn't think it was an indictment on the talent level. You know, my favorite play of the game, Chad, they bring in Kobe Black at corner. And that's my mother-in-law. I don't know if you guys can hear the phone ringing.
I thought that was like your sound effect for people in Waco, the Kobe Black sound. They brought in Kobe Black.
And I'm oogling Kobe Black, right? I'm watching him on the screen, and I'm like, God damn, that kid
that didn't look
out a uniform. He looks like $1 million.
Yeah, that's not what a freshman used to look like, is it?
And then Ryan Wingo ran by him for a touchdown on that very play was when they run the play to Wingo, and he just beats Kobe Black on the play. But Kobe Black made up for it throughout the rest of the scrimmage. He gets the interception later. By the end of the scrimmage, you weren't saying that Kobe Black's not ready for prime time. But he did get beat by another true freshman on one of the highlight plays of the scrimmage. I just thought that one of the things, if you're a Texas fan, you should be peacocking at the office today about how much talent there is. That one could have been 5-star receiver beat a 5-star DB, and that they just kept competing like that throughout the day. I didn't see that at most of the spring games that I've watched. Even Ohio State last week, I watched some of that, and it felt like there were definite divisions. Like, okay, the starters are out, and then there's a drop. I didn't think there was as much of a drop in this spring game between first team and second team. There was in the third team. Yeah. But I thought the talent level and the competition was the best I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Somebody's trying to clarify the chat from earlier. Shook One says he's trying to say Quinn shouldn't start, just nasty disrespect. Okay, if that's okay, I see 2 starters and Quinn. I got you. I agree with Nick here. Quinn slander got to stop. We would be in the dumpster still without him. He made it cool to go to Texas again.
Oh, that's a bit much.
That might. The last sentence?
Well, definitely the last sentence.
Yeah. And dumpster.
I don't know what the Quinn slander is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be
I just called him a first-round draft pick.
Right, not by us. I think they're talking about folks in the chat and kind of other fans. It says I had folks in my section at the spring game yelling QB1 after Arch threw his first touchdown. Tom G, thank you for that. It is just something that, again, and by the way, I think fair to point out, Catch, everything we're talking about that could happen at DKR throughout the season, it was there anyway. It wasn't created by Saturday, but there will be that in your mind. You brought it up. There was something about Malik Murphy that was in fans' mind, and he went, 9 of 13 in the spring game. So when Quinn was a little shaky early in the season and it was 10-10 at the end of the third quarter, there were Texas fans at DKR thinking, hey, wait a minute, what about that guy? Well, this time they're thinking about 3 touchdowns and the throw to Wingo and that other throw to Bond and the throw to John Taco, all that stuff with Arch. And if Colorado State goes up 3-0 on a field goal set up by a Quinn Ewers mistake, what are you going to do in your seat at DKR? Are you going to be sensible? Are you going to be cool and come on, Quinn, let's go 3. Let's go 3. Here we go, Quinn. Here we go, Quinn. Or are you going to shout about Arch? Are you going to shout about number 16? That's kind of what we're talking about, but we would have been talking about it anyway. It's there anyway because this is the Texas football circus that no one's ever seen before. With or without Saturday, I'll just argue, Catch, Saturday just Saturday just seeded the clouds. Saturday just seeded the clouds.
We didn't see no running back conversation today. That we've talked about it so much in the spring and nothing that happened on Saturday. Mm-hmm. There was only one running back that had only one scholarship running back had more than 7 yards. And that was Savion Red, who got most of the work. It was alarming how much, I don't want to say scrub time. That's not when the third and the fourth string guys were on the field, that was exclusively when Red was in the game. Whereas the other guys were rotating in with the 1s and the 2s.
Yeah.
He was the only guy that he had 18 yards, I think, on 6 carries. And it just wasn't. If I told you a week ago today, so the Monday before the spring game, 5 days before it happened, that we would show up on Monday, and I read you like CJ Baxter was like 4 carries for 5 yards, and Christian Clark was 2 for none. And like nobody broke 7 yards total other than even Trey Wisner, who had that nice run but had it called back. I think he was, you guys have to forgive me, I'm doing this off the top of my head. I think it was 3 carries for 5 yards.
Yeah.
It was a little strange. That's how good the passing game was, that we've just completely not talked about the run game.
Yeah, if you had told me that, Catch, I would have said 2 names. I just would have gotten one of them wrong. I would have said, man, Quinn and Arch must have been dealing. And in the end, it was Arch and Owens must have been dealing.
You're not going to let that go.
No, I'm just saying that's what it would have been. If you say that to me before the game, I'd have been like, damn, Quinn and Arch are really dealing. And that,
or it was just a bad spring game.
Yeah. No, but I mean, not necessarily bad, but it was like, if you tell me those are the rushing numbers and I know the way Sark thinks, I would have assumed that that's because the passing numbers were good, that he was just throwing a lot. And it kind of was, that's what it was. But yeah, somebody with a $2 super chat to ask about that play with Baxter. Super chat, what about Baxter trucking Taft choo-choo?
First of all, spell Michael Taft's name correctly. It's 2 A's, 2 F's.
That's right. Got to throw an extra A in there. Baxter did not knock the other A out of his name. Come on now. Great. You know what, Catch? And I said this in the post game. It's a little nerdy comment, but it's a good delivery by Arch. That ball is right where it needs to be to allow Baxter to get his body turned upfield. He didn't make him spin all the way around. If you look, I can't remember the play. I think it was Baxter. There's another one of the quarterbacks. I think it was a Lord throw, but there's another time where they're just trying to throw a swing pass and he makes the guy turn all the way around. And it just loses the play loses its steam.
Well, we saw that a couple times last year, early in the season.
Yeah.
When Quinn, remember when we were getting into these arguments about what constituted a drop or not?
Oh, and yeah.
The one was like, well, the running back's having to turn his body around and his momentum's going one way, but he's turning back the other way. And Yes, the ball hit him in the hands, but his body was contorted, like being able. Hey, real quick, shout out. I think it was Terrence Brooks. I think it was Arch that threw a ball along the sidelines toward the end zone, where in a game the DB would have decapitated the receiver.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Instead, and I think the receiver, there was a part of me that thought the receiver realizes that Arch hung him out to dry. And the DB didn't even make a play on the ball. It was as if they were instructed, no kill shots in a spring game.
I can't remember if it was, I feel like it was Golden or was it Golden or Wingo?
Whoever it was, they ended up dropping the ball. Like it was kind of a weird play at the end because the DB didn't come in and smoke him, and it felt like the receiver was anticipating that contact, and it kept him. Anyway, I don't even know why I bring it up other than to say attaboy to the DB that would rather get beaten for a touchdown than concuss his teammate. Attaboy. I can't remember if it was Brooks or not.
I think it was
Brooks. Were coming over, and in a game, somebody's getting knocked out. And instead, they let it go. And it's maybe like saved that guy 5 years on his life.
Yeah, Chad says it was Golden. Thank you, Chad, for that clarification. I think you are correct. It may have been Golden there. Oscar throwing in a chat. The issue with the Quinn talk is the people who have an issue with him starting likely think they could be a better play caller / coach than Sark. And again, that's not the discussion we're having today. Please don't tell anybody that's the discussion we're having today. Like Ketch said from the very beginning, like Ketch said in his 10 thoughts from the weekend, Quinn's the starter. We all understand that. We're just kind of talking about, what occurred in the spring game and everything that comes off of it. We've got buy or sell coming up. Couple other notes before we get done. Real quick, if you want to celebrate the spring game and all that good passing, how about a little Deep Eddy vodka? I had some over the weekend, and so did my niece. My niece came to visit, and she's into Deep Eddy lime or lemon with water. That's become her drinks. Nice and simple. So I made her a Deep Eddy lime and water, and she loved it. 8 different flavors of Deep Eddy vodka. And remember, out in the tasting room, you can do flights and try all 8, or you can get those cocktails made with the different vodkas, and they'll take you down different paths. I love the Dreamsicle, but if you want more of a margarita vibe, they can do that. Want more of the Paloma vibe? I was with a friend yesterday. We were celebrating my wife's birthday, and our friend had a Paloma. She actually had a couple of Palomas, to be fair, before we went and saw a comedy show last night. If you want to go more Paloma, they've got the Ruby Red Deep Eddy vodka for you out there at the tasting room. Thursday and Friday, 11 to 7, 11 to 5 on Saturdays, and Sunday it's 12 to 5. Deep Eddy vodka tasting room. Thanks to them for their support. And remember, they're making us up an Orange Bloods drink out there. As soon as that cocktail's ready, I'll tell you what it's called. You can go get it. And I think they're going to throw you a discount as well. So we got that one coming up. All right, Ketch. What else do we need to hit before we hit buy or sell? What have we not hit that you wanted to today?
Nothing. That's what the rest of the week is for.
Okay. Just a couple.
I'll say this wide receiver unit has a lot of – there's some talent there, man.
Oh,
I don't know how they bundle it down to 3.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to rotate more than they have in the past because they got dudes, man. They may not have a number 1 that's as evolved as either Xavier or Adonai was a year ago, but they might have 6 guys that are just a notch below that. Mm-hmm. So instead of maybe 2 first-round picks or a first and a second, maybe they got 6 3s and 4s. I don't know, but those dudes look really good, really athletic, really fast. And Arch seemed to like throwing to all of them.
Yes, he did. Yeah, a lot of good chemistry built there. A couple quick things, Ketch, before we're done. Just my nerdy eyes real quick. On the Alfred Collins touchdown, defensive coaches, let's get one big step in the end zone for Alfred Collins. When his foot hit the end zone, that ball is 3 yards to the sideline. He got there, but he got there in the air. Let's have the big man just remind him, get in the end zone. DeAndre Moore's touchdown had a little bit of that feel too. He got there, but let the ball go pretty quick. The other thing, Ketch, this is going to sound stupid, but it seems like Isaiah Bond and these receivers want to celebrate with him with gun gestures. They've got to be careful with that in the SEC. They're going to throw a flag on that. The SEC is the place where the guy cost his team a game by pretending to urinate like a dog. Do you remember that? That happened.
Yes.
Yeah, that was in the Egg Bowl. That's something that happened in the SEC.
Did that cost his team the game, or did it almost cost his team the game?
No, it absolutely cost his team. The game was not going to go to overtime. Then it did, and Mississippi State kicked the field goal. I think it was in Oxford that it happened, that they did it. Ole Miss girl can tell me about that one. That was bad. But anyway, they did a little thing where they're throwing like the gun thing up. I guess maybe because his last name is Bond, and Arch was doing it too. Arch did this right after he hit him with a pass. So receivers, coaches, Sark, y'all may want to double check that with the fellas, because you don't want a big play to get called back, or not. They wouldn't call it back there, but you don't want to get a celebration penalty.
Pat McAfee spending like 3 minutes talking about Arch on his show today on ESPN. It's what we're talking about.
Right. This is it. This is exactly what it is. But this is what Sark wanted. Right? This is what Sark wanted, and he's not afraid of it. That's the overall, I think, theme of the day. The only other thing I had for you real quick, Catch, I saw a note today from Adam Schefter. He is hearing that Byron Murphy might be the first defensive player off the board. He's hearing that in that 8-9 territory, Atlanta, Chicago, they might be interested in him over Dallas Turner. So just keep an eye on it. Raheem Morris in Atlanta. The argument would be that Raheem remembers what Aaron Donald is like, and he sees a little bit of that potential in Byron Murphy. And, of course, that would put Byron and Bijan Robinson on the same football team. Just keep an eye on it.
Surprise. NFL teams love the highest-rated defensive lineman on the board.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, they tend to take those guys high.
They really do.
You know, there are certain positions where it's like they go really high. It's a headline. There are other positions, if they go it's like, oh, somebody took a left tackle at 9. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. It's
It'll
like
happen.
someone took the highest rated interior defensive lineman in the top 10. And it's like, well, yeah, because those help. Those guys help.
Yeah. Well, but it would, yeah, exactly. It's funny how that'll happen. But yeah, Byron apparently is getting even more and more respect. Texas went on a run from 2007 to last year where they hadn't had a top 10 guy drafted, and this could be back-to-back. And I think it's the same spot, right? Bijan, I think, went 8, and it might be 8 again. So just interesting. Do you see any way Sark does 4 wide sets? Paul for 199. Paul, I would love to think we see more of them, but Catch, I don't think we're going to see that much more just because he's got the talent. What do you think?
No, because Sark likes to have 2 things on the field at all times, a running back and a tight end.
Mm-hmm. He loves the 11.
They go 4 sets, but one of those 4 sets is the tight end. So they do what you're talking about,
right?
Or what you're asking about. Sark likes to have a tight end on the field. So it's hard to go like full Star Wars in the passing game, right? It's like 5 wide. Dude, I'll say this, Paul. Here's the best answer I can give you. The second time I brought up Chance Mock today in the show, but I can remember when Chance in 2003. They had Roy and BJ and Sloan and Tony Jeffrey, and like it was a good, really good receiving core. They ran a little bit of 5 wides in practice. And I kept thinking all year long, just waiting for them to go 5 wide. You know what? They're going to do it against Oklahoma. They're going to go 5 wide and catch them off guard and sling it all over. And at the end of the day, I've been waiting 20 years for the Longhorns to go 5 wides. 20 years, 20 plus years. I've been waiting for Texas, spread it all out and just get crazy with it. Every single coach that Texas has had, from Mac to Charlie to Tom to Steve, they like having a little bit more caution than that. They don't just throw caution to the wind. They like to have a tight end on the field. A lot of times they love that 11 personnel. So
Right.
I don't think so. I
But
know
I
why
do-
you're asking, but I don't think so.
And to your point, I think that's the other thing I would tell Paul as well, Catch, to flesh it out. The idea that 11 personnel can at times look like a 4 or 5 wide set. Think of guys like Nyblack. Think of what you saw out of Washington as he develops. Think about what Blue can do. Think about what Baxter did in this game, the little swing pass where he trucks Taft, where he starts in the backfield, that kind of a play. But you could also have a motion play where you've got your tight end and running back, and they both end up splitting out.
Yeah.
They've got guys that can do that. But I would not expect – I agree with you, Catch. I don't expect a lot of true 4 and 5 wides where you're really putting 5 wide receivers on the field.
So, Paul, Sark's going to have to rotate them bad boys. That's just all there is to it.
Yep, no doubt.
It's all there is to it.
That's the key. That's going to have to be a rotational issue. All right, Catch, you ready to buy or sell?
Yes.
First or second?
I'll let you go first today.
All right, let's start with the spring game. Buy or sell number 1, even though you knew it was coming, that much Arch and that little Quinn was a weird look for the spring game.
Sell. I think it's a weird look slightly because of all of the circumstances that go into Arch and Quinn and the quarterbacks and everything else. But you know what? Sell. Maybe a little. Like not – it's not like Quinn is Caleb Williams. And even then, it feels like you'd want your starting quarterback to get a little more work. I'll say that it was slightly a weird look because on the whole in college football, it is a little strange that the starting quarterback, there wasn't really any emphasis on the starting quarterback getting some work. And that wasn't it. Look, I'll tell you this, Michigan and A&M and Oklahoma weren't trying to not get work in for their starters. So yeah, maybe a baby sell.
Baby buy. There, okay.
Or a baby buy.
Baby buy, yeah. All right, buy or sell number 2 tonight. You'd rest Embiid and get him back to Philly for game 3.
No, sell. They can't go 0-2. I mean, I'm a big believer in the math, and you get to a point where you got to win 4 out of 5 against a team that you just lost 2 straight against. It feels unlikely. So think about Philadelphia. They can't let New York get 23 offensive rebounds in this game. And Josh Hart can't just make every 3 that he takes. And if those 2 things hadn't happened in game 1, Philadelphia would be up 1-0. If those things happen, they can rest Embiid. They can play Embiid. If they're going to let New York get offensive rebounds and Josh Hart's going to shoot 70% from 3, I mean, we're just going to lose the series.
By the way, tough night for Philly could be tougher. Maxey is questionable with some kind of illness tonight. TNT 6:30 for that game. TNT late for Lakers Nuggets, and the NBA TV tunnel is going to suck up Orlando and Cleveland. So you got to go
NBA TV. It's like, the JV.
Yeah,
we'll put them on NBA TV.
You got to go find that at 6:00 if you want tonight. Catch back to Texas. Buy or sell number 3. Ryan Wingo is a starter by game 4.
Buy.
Okay.
I don't know. I tried this all weekend trying to figure out the order of the wide receivers. If you can only start 3, I don't know who the odd man out is. But it feels like Ryan Wingo has to be in the top 3. Texas doesn't have 3 better receivers than Ryan Wingo. So whatever that means is whatever that means. But he's really talented.
I feel like Cook, Bond, Wingo might be the answer.
But isn't that an injustice for DeAndre Moore?
Maybe, but I mean, I don't know about injustice. I don't know if I would go that far. Do DeAndre Moore and Matthew Golden have to fit in and find their rotational positions because those other 3 guys are just better?
I don't know that they're better though.
That's the question. Right. And then we don't, and there's a lot of talent there. So it's not that clear, but that's what my eyes told me watching the game.
I will say they did move Bond more into the slot as the spring went along. It wasn't an exclusive. So I don't know. I don't have an answer at wide receiver. They got a lot of good players. And if Sark historically rotated his receivers a lot, then we just wouldn't even care. But we know that last year, Mitchell and Worthy were both over 80% of snaps. So those guys almost never came off the field. If they employ the same strategy this year, and there are just a couple of guys that never come off the field, they're going to be really good players who are like, I'm not getting any playing time. And they've got to manage that. And oh, by the way, Silas Bolden will be here in a couple of months, and he's good too. So
yeah, you're right.
Wealthy people problems that Texas has at wide receiver.
No doubt. By the way, that Jonte Cook from the left slot pass that Manning hit him with in the second half, that was pretty nice too. Like, we'd heard about Bond and Cook both working in the slot, and they both look pretty good doing it. All right, buy or sell number 4, Catch. Texas will add 3 interior defensive linemen in the portal. I think I probably gave you something similar to this recently, but after what Sark said, I'm going to hit you again.
I'll buy if I can go ahead and count. They've added 1 already in Tia Savea. So I do think they'll add 2 more, which would mean they would add 3 interior D linemen through the portal. If the question is 3 more, I'll sell. I think they get 2.
Yeah, I meant that as 3 more from today.
Okay, well then that's a sell.
Gotcha. Okay. And obviously keep your eyes open for those developments, as Texas is now at 84 on the scholarship. So there's room for 1.
Texas could get commitments from 1 or both of those D tackles in the next 24 hours. Like our show tomorrow,
right,
could have those guys in the thumbnail, and that's what we're talking about.
8 days for that window until it closes here on the 22nd. All right, Catch. Finally, let's test you with a couple of birthdays and see if you know the old schools. Buy or sell number 5. Today is Jeff Hostetler's birthday, and yesterday Tony Romo turned 44. You can tell me where each of them went to college.
I mean, Tony Romo's Eastern Illinois.
Very good. Well done.
Hostetler went to Hofstra.
Ooh, it's a hell of a guess. This is one I can never stick this one in my brain. Technically, I would have accepted Penn State or West Virginia. He finished at West Virginia, did spend a little time at Penn State, but he's a Mountaineer. I can never.
We've been up with Hostetler in the 80s. He wasn't good enough in college for me to remember him.
Exactly. Though that's the way he is for me too. There's certain NFL guys where I only know them in the NFL. Like when I was a kid, I never knew Bruce Smith played at Virginia Tech. I had to learn it because I never saw him play at Virginia Tech. I only saw him as a Buffalo Bill. Happy birthday to those 2 guys. Hostetler today and Romo hit the 4-4.
In fact, with Hostetler, I think my starting point with him is like the 1990 Giants.
Yeah.
But I don't remember. I couldn't tell you how long Hostetler had been with the Giants before, because Sims is the starter. And then Sims gets hurt and Hostetler comes in. But there was no reason for me to know who Jeff Hostetler. If I did a Google search on Jeff Hostetler right now, and it was like he graduated from West Virginia in 86 or 88 or 84, I don't know. I have no idea.
I'm with you. I would not have known that one. I knew Romo. I didn't know that one. By the way, Catch, we are seeing multiple chats like this. Bill Norton just committed to Texas, reported by Hayes Fawcett, and another one came in all caps. Norton committed. So you just said it could happen in the next day or so. Apparently, it just happened.
Matter of fact, let me double check on this because I've got an instant analysis piece that I've had written. So if that's definitely – Do we have that confirmed? Let me double check. Is that in our teams? It doesn't surprise me.
Let me see. Let's see here.
It hasn't made it into teams yet.
I haven't seen that. I will check.
I see that Zach Wilson got traded to the Broncos. Good luck, Broncos, with that.
Mm-hmm. I
don't doubt that it happened. It's expected to happen. So I'm not doubting. I just haven't. We're doing a show, and I haven't seen that.
I do see a report here. A report from a competitor or two. Yes.
Okay,
I look
so
right.
it's being reported.
I am seeing.
Oh, I see it 3 minutes ago. Hayes Fawcett reported it.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a 24/7 reporting as well.
I literally checked with a source an hour ago and asked about both of the defensive tackles that were in this weekend, and I got a thumbs up for both. So
okay,
just
so
stay
that would
tuned.
be. So the both ones that were in, just to be clear, is Norton and was it the TCU guy or the other one?
It'll be UCLA. It's
yeah, Toia.
Yes.
Yeah. Toia. Okay. Gotcha. So Norton and Toia. So two guys with Nansen connections. We talked about that last week. The Nansen connection is easy with Norton. And like I pointed out last week, Toia, when he was at UCLA, the first year at UCLA, Nansen was his D-line coach. So both those guys have Nansen connections.
Yep. And I literally was anticipating this happening Saturday. I just changed the headline of one of my stories because I had Norton committing. I'm surprised it took this long.
Oh, there you go. And one of our chatters, Blake, says that's two huge pickups, literally and figuratively. Yes. Sark said they needed them, and there you have. Probably no coincidence, Catch, that he says that out loud very clearly at that presser after the spring game when he knows those two big cats are in town at that moment.
No, exactly.
There's just no way that's an accident.
All right, you ready for some buy or sell?
Yeah, let's do it.
Buy or sell number one. Arch Manning throws a better deep ball than Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, right now it's a buy. A little more. There seems to be a little more accurate steam on that thing. In my head, I think Quinn would have hit, Wingo just as easily as Arch did, but boy, it's effortless when Arch does it. So right now, I think it is a little better. Yeah.
Buy or sell number two. Vernon Broughton getting married at the same time as the spring game. You've got no judgment on that, but it is at least a little weird / peculiar.
It is. Buy. I've never heard of that happening. I've said for years, birth, death, or military service is a reason why people should get married in football season. If you're football fans and you get married in football season, to me, those are the only three acceptable reasons. I added COVID for a while. Now we take that away. So I'm not going to get into Vernon Broughton's business and say there's no reason at all. Maybe there's just some good reason, but it is weird, especially considering that D-line situation in the interior. And you brought it up. The idea that his buddies are on the team and wouldn't they want to come to the wedding?
Norton's
like all that
just
stuff
committed.
It's just weird.
That's guys being brought in to take Vernon Broughton's job.
Right. It's odd. It is odd. So I'm hoping he's still on this team and will play very well and all that stuff. But when I saw it on Saturday, I'm like, I had to reread it 3 times. But when Anwar posted it, I'm like,
peculiar.
What? It is weird. Yeah, absolute buy.
Buy or sell number 3 as a Mavericks fan. Game 1 of Clips Mavs was alarming. Buy or sell?
Alarming. Yeah, I'll sell that. I mean, by the seeds, by the seeding, they're supposed to lose the series. They're in LA. They are the Mavericks.
Yeah, but that was like a total throttling.
I mean, no, they got whipped in the game. Was it alarming? No. They're down 1-0.
I can't argue with your buy or sell this. Like you answer the question. It's like,
yeah,
no, you can't do that.
Right.
It's buy or buy.
Yeah, right. I'm not allowed to sell. No, it's a sell. I would not go alarming. I've been a Mavs fan a long time. Have a bad game, don't play good defense, bitch and moan at each other and get blown out. I've seen that before. I'm not alarmed by it.
By the way, Tracy, we'll get to your buy or sell in a second. I think maybe we'll get to that in just a second. Buy or sell number 4, speaking of alarming, 4 of 15 in the spring game, Connor Weigman. Little alarming.
Yeah, I'll buy a little bit. A&M's spring game was weird, Catch, on multiple levels. The rain made it weird. The fact that it's a new coaching staff and you let 2 captains pick the teams was weird. The fact that Weigman didn't take the first snap at quarterback was weird. There was just a lot of it that was strange. Elko seemed like he was leaning into defensive scheming. You talked earlier about the vanilla. Elko didn't show up with vanilla. He threw some sloppy, rocky road out there in that rain to go after his offenses. It was a strange one. So I'll say a little alarming, but there were also a couple of moments where Wigman reminded you what he can be. That first throw from Wigman was a bullet. And it was good to see. And I hope he's healthy and ready to throw more of those.
And finally, buyer sell number 5. I've got a game of Hotter Than.
All right.
And this is an edition of Entertainment Hotter Than.
Okay.
Entertainment headline Hotter Than.
Okay.
As fate would have it, I went to an entertainment website to be inspired by a Hotter Than. And there were 2 stories on top of each other that I thought, that's an interesting Hotter Than. So here we go.
Okay.
Buy or sell. 902. This is Prime on Prime.
Oh, okay.
90210's Tori Spelling.
Yeah.
Hotter than Hillary Swank.
Wow. That's well played. Well played, especially for all you Office fans out there that remember that episode. The 90210 Tori Spelling, hotter than Hillary Swank, and I'm trying to figure out.
Isn't there a face thing with both of these two?
Oh, there definitely is. Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, no, this is all kind of
neck down from neck down, hotter. It's quite a battle.
There's a matter of taste here with both. My gut was to buy. I'm gonna go Spelling. I'll go Spelling on that one. What about you?
I might go Swank.
Okay.
On the hotter than scale.
Hillary Swank, man. Beautiful smile. Yeah.
I always felt like she has an unfair thing.
Yeah. And they're both, here's the thing, Catch. The thing is, some people don't want to embrace the stable when it comes to hotness. And we need to embrace the stable. I'm a stable guy. I'm one of those stable fans, right? And when you get into the Julia Roberts kind of world of hot ladies, you got to be willing to embrace it. There's nothing wrong with that. The mouth, mouth a little bigger, a lot of teeth. We get what it is, right? And people like to make fun of that, but there's a hotness living in that. There's a hotness living in that.
Women are doing there's a version of Hotter Than on a women's sports show where they're hotter than John Elway versus who's another horse face?
That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, that's one of those phrases too. Others use that phrase as a derogatory. For me, it's not a derogatory. It's just different type. It's a different type of woman. You're just in a different category at that point.
We do that as buy or sell from Tracy.
All right, Tracy, $5. First, it was a pleasure meeting y'all on Saturday. Yes, Tracy, it was great to meet you as well. With recent news, what does this mean for Broughton? Not to mention to mention the wedding.
That's why I think he may have asked us right as we did the Vernon Broughton buy or sell.
Okay. Tracy, when I first heard it, there was a little flash in the back of my mind, like, wait, is he going to be on the team moving forward? I think the thought catch is that this does not affect any of that. Sark said it was an excused absence to go get married. Again, I've never heard of that, but there could be some really serious family stuff going on we don't know about, and there's a reason to do it. And he could have just looked them in the face and said, guys, I got to go.
At the end of the day, if he'd been tearing it up and practice leading into the spring game, him missing the spring game wouldn't have been that big of a deal.
Right.
There's no way to get around the fact they're bringing in Bill Norton specifically to replace him.
Yeah.
So that was whether there was a wedding or not. That was going to happen regardless. Boy, I don't know what Vernon Broughton does from here. I haven't heard that there's any reason. I haven't heard that he's leaning towards leaving or anything like that. But the Norton move is designed specifically, I think, to challenge the snaps they need to get from Vernon Broughton. It is what it is. I think ultimately Bill Norton moves ahead of Vernon Broughton on the depth chart, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close. And the question now, I think, becomes, what does that mean for younger players? What happens in the hierarchy of they had 7 scholarship interior defensive linemen on the field playing on Saturday. I guess 6, not including Broughton.
Mm-hmm.
Sark said they need bodies and they need numbers, but they had 7. And they'll have 8 in the fall. Like, they run 4 deep at defensive tackle, but they don't run 4 deep at really good defensive tackles. And I think ultimately, I don't think the coaches think that Vernon Broughton is really good. And that is kind of what it is.
Yeah, and by the way, we'll kind of end with that position because that's where we'll pick it up at 4 o'clock this afternoon on the recruiting show. Yes, we will talk about recruits that were in for the spring game, but of course, recruiting does kind of take in the portal discussion as well. Bill Norton, that has become official in these last few minutes. We'll start with Bill Norton, and we'll work our way through the discussion coming up at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So be sure to like, subscribe, get your notifications so you know when all those shows are happening. And thank you to over 800 folks that are in that Specs chat as we get ready to close the door. Catch, you good? Anything else we need to hit?
No, I probably need to go do some Orange Blood stuff now that you got portal guys announcing their decisions. So we'll see you guys in the recruiting hour, and we can wrap it up.
We'll do that. Also, just a quick reminder that special is running throughout today that we've been talking about these last couple days. Buy a month, get 3 months free on orangebloods.com. Like Ketch just said, he's headed over to orangebloods.com right now to get some stuff done. OB Spring 24 is that code that you need to use. Thanks to everybody for your support. We'll be back tomorrow at 12 for another edition of